I'm James Swanwick. This is the Alcohol Free Lifestyle Podcast, where you learn to live a life of health, wealth, love, and happiness.
When I speak to people who are considering changing their relationship with alcohol, something that almost always comes up is, what will my friends say? It's amazing. We work with successful, intelligent, very high achieving people. But when it comes to not drinking, it's not uncommon for them to kind of become like kids on the playground, wondering, do people like me? Do I fit in? Am I going to be picked to be part of the team? If that resonates with you, stay tuned for today's episode. This is Victoria English. I'm the head coach here at Alcohol Free Lifestyle, and I'm going to share some stories with you about how my friends responded when I told them that I wasn't drinking. I'm also going to share with you how I went from being absolutely terrified or oversharing or not sharing at all to feeling confident, empowered, and authentic in my journey through life without alcohol. Welcome to the show. Let me take you back to, I think around the year 2012. I was dabbling in the sober life. Dabbling meaning I was in and out. Was I an alcoholic? Wasn't I an alcoholic? Did I really have a problem? Well, the only thing I really knew of back then was AA, and so I was going to AA meetings, and I was trying to work out all these issues in my head. I was so embarrassed that somebody would know that I was trying to change my relationship with alcohol. It mortified me that it would get out. So one day I had to go take my car in for service, just a regular checkup. And I think it might have even been before the days of Uber. And so I believe I was riding home in a taxi. And as a mother of four, I always carried a big bag, the catch-all. And on my way back in the taxi, I realized that I had left my big book, my AA book, in my car at the dealership where they were performing service. I was so terrified. And so I asked the taxi driver to take me back to the dealership. I then went inside and I had to request that the mechanic bring my car down off of the lift, pretending there was something very important in the car. I probably said a medication or something that just couldn't wait to be retrieved. They brought my car down. I smuggled the book into my bag and I paid the extra fee to have the taxi take me home. I can still remember that feeling. My body still remembers that moment. My heart was racing, my mouth was dry. So imagine if someone had told Victoria in 2012, around that time, hey, in 2023, there's going to be this thing called Zoom, and everyone's going to use it, and you're going to record a podcast about living an alcohol-free lifestyle. Can you even imagine? I would not have believed it. And so if you wonder, was Victoria ever like me? Yes, I was. I really was. Today, I'm going to share a little more about what happened. How did I get here? And how it can help you. So back then, as I mentioned, I was terrified. I was secretive. The meetings I would go to were often in churches, and they would be in these very remote rooms. And it was hard to find them, and sometimes it would be down in the bottom of the church. I would often find the room by smelling the coffee. If you've been to an AA meeting, you know that smell. And So I would go to the meeting, I would make up stories about where I was going. Isn't it crazy? It's kind of like back in my drinking days, being so secretive, but I would make up a story about where I was going, where I would be, how long I'd be gone, and when I'd be back. In hindsight, it probably made my kids kind of anxious because it wasn't uncommon before that time for me to have said the same thing, but come home hours later smelling of, yes, wine. So, but here I was trying to improve my life, and AA did help some. So this isn't a bash on AA. I'm just sharing my experience. And so I would secretly go to the meeting, and then, oh my gosh, I would have to go live in the real world where people drank. I didn't know how to handle it because I wasn't in a world that was dangerous. It wasn't that I needed to change everything. I needed to change a lot of things, and I have, and I still am. But I didn't need to throw away everything about my life. And so the idea of not seeing my friends was very alarming. It felt like a punishment. And so I was trying to navigate, how can I do this? How can I see my friends, some of whom who drank heavily and some who didn't? How can I do these things when I'm an alcoholic? Because that's what I would say about myself back then. So a few things happened. Number one, entering into a social situation would create tremendous anxiety. Because I was an alcoholic and I had to, I don't know, I guess, did I have to tell people? I wasn't sure. So I'd go into a situation and a few things would happen. I would sometimes overshare. And I think it scared the crap out of people. Because if someone offered me a simple glass of wine, even if I didn't know them well, I would say, no, I can't. I'm an alcoholic. Nice to meet you too, right? That's awkward. Well, that would really cast a shadow over the whole interaction because people would tiptoe around me and then they'd get really flustered and ask if they can, is it okay if they have a drink? And it made me feel very much separate, very separate from everybody else. It also made me resentful because I felt like I couldn't drink. And to be honest, I would then observe some people drinking more than I drank. And I think, well, gosh, why aren't they at the meetings? Why do I have to be here? That would perpetuate that cognitive dissonance of, do I really have a problem? Am I really that bad? Look at her over there. Here I am wearing the big A on my forehead, the scarlet letter, not drinking. Because I'm an alcoholic, but am I? It didn't work out all that well, the oversharing. And so I tried something else. I would try being silent. I wouldn't say anything. I would go to an event with friends and I would smuggle club soda in my carry-all bag. It seemed to go everywhere with me, didn't it? I would smuggle club soda or some other non-alcoholic beverage in my bag into the party. I would then, you guys, I know it sounds so crazy to say this. I would then get the alcoholic drink, find a place to pour it out, and go into the bathroom and put a non-alcoholic drink into that cup. Wow, I'm exhausted just thinking back on that. Are you tired yet? So what's wrong with that scenario? Well, I was holding an alcoholic beverage in my hand, number one. In our early days of becoming alcohol-free, that's really not a good idea. And so there I was with a vodka soda, making myself go to the bathroom to pour it out and pour in my club soda. Well, by that point, my pathways were lighting up like a circus tent. And so there I am having mad cravings for this vodka soda, but making myself dump it out, all the while reminding myself of what a loser I was because I couldn't control myself. Again, sending me back into that cognitive dissonance. So I wouldn't tell anybody. Now, in hindsight, I recognize that that tactic was a little bit sneaky. When we are caught in the cycle of alcohol misuse, we're a little bit sneaky, right? And so that kind of gave me an out, didn't it? Because what if I decided that particular day that my drinking wasn't a problem? What if I had been alcohol free for, say, a few weeks and things were going pretty well, and that voice was coming back in my head saying, you're really not that bad. It was not that bad, Victoria. Remember that other person you talked to? Remember how bad they were? You see where I'm going with this. It gave me room for negotiation. And that didn't go well because the truth is, you guys, especially in the early days, how many times can we expect ourselves to hold that vodka soda and not take a sip? It wasn't safe. What do those two scenarios have in common? I was making an effort to make other people comfortable. I was trying to make them happy. And so when I would share, I can't because I'm an alcoholic, that would often be followed by some war stories about how bad my drinking had gotten with people that really had no right to know those things. But I would say it, sometimes I would even embellish in an effort to make them comfortable with me not drinking so that they could say, oh, well, Victoria is an alcoholic. They didn't have to worry about how much they were drinking because I was like the token alcoholic at the party with, the cup full of whatever they happen to have on hand. Things like apple juice. I drank a lot of apple juice. I hate apple juice, but I drank it because sometimes that was all people had if I hadn't smuggled my own stuff in. So, yeah, that wasn't setting me up for success. And then, of course, being silent about it, aside from giving myself a little bit of an out, if I had decided that particular day I didn't have a drinking problem, my silence was so that no one else would feel uncomfortable. Now, I can look back on that version of myself with compassion now. I did not know the things that I know now. I didn't have any of these tools. That's why I share them with you. I share these stories so that, number one, you'll know you are not alone. You are relatable. If you're nodding your head right now saying, oh, yeah, that sounds like me, chances are there are hundreds, maybe even thousands of people nodding along with you.
Hi, I'm James Swanwick. Have you downloaded my free Alcohol Freedom Formula yet? If not, you can go to alcoholfreelifestyle.com/guide. You can download it. It will outline the same process that we walk our clients through in our flagship 90-day Stop Drinking program. You'll also get an email from me each day with tips and tricks to reduce or stop drinking, to improve your health, nutrition, mobility, and lots of other great mindset techniques. That's alcoholfreelifestyle.com/guide.
Today is so much better, and I'm going to share what today is like. So, what changed? Well, I had had enough, first of all, because I realized that making other people comfortable was continuing to make me really, really uncomfortable. As you have experienced personally by now, if you're listening to this podcast, Maladaptive drinking only gets worse with time. It doesn't get better. You may have stints of where it gets better, right? Where you say, oh boy, yeah, last summer I was really drinking a ton. I've cut back. Chances are the cut back isn't going to stay. Eventually, you will return to that set point of your drinking, and then it'll get worse from there. It's not you. I'm not saying this as directed at you and your personality. It's just it's the nature of the substance. It's a drug. And so over time, you'll need more of it. You'll need it more often, things like that. And so by the time I wrapped my head around this and began to gain these very effective tools, I was really getting sick of it because my drinking was getting worse. I could take breaks, but the breaks were becoming harder. They were often becoming shorter, and the consequences of my drinking were growing. You know, my relationships were more damaged. My mental health was struggling. My self-esteem was in the toilet. My kids were not happy. And so I decided some things had to change. And so I stopped trying to make everyone else comfortable. I said, well, look, at the end of the day, the world's going to keep spinning. And I've got some friends who have proven to really, really care about me. And I've proven to really, really care about them. And so whatever weird, awkward dance I'm about to start with them, it's going to come out okay on the other side. I think. I wasn't always sure, but I hoped for the best. And so what was the response when I did something as radical as what I'm doing now, which is become an alcohol coach and go public with my story? There were a few different reactions. So one of the big reactions I got, and you may get this too, a lot of our members get this, is the question, you stopped drinking? You had an alcohol problem? You know, when we're stuck in the cycle of alcohol misuse, we do have imposter syndrome, right? And so we're struggling to make everything look okay on the outside, but don't you feel exposed? Even if you dress up and you clean up fine and your work is going well, don't you feel exposed? Like you're going to get found out? You know, that, I don't know, someone's going to show up at your house at the wrong time and you're going to be a bottle of wine in or a bottle and a half. Or don't you worry if you say or do something? Don't you worry about that one incident? Don't you worry that secrets will get out? Was there a video camera at that vacation? Is that going to go viral of you dancing, right? You feel like you're about to get caught. That's not a good feeling. But often, especially in our community, because we're high performers, a lot of people don't know. That can feel funny. That was my feeling because my kids knew, and some people very close to me knew. They didn't know the extent of it, but they knew something was off, not because I was drunk all the time, but because of how I was going through life. They saw me unhappy. They knew that something was off. So when I identified what that thing was, I did get a lot of, you, really? That was the first thing. I am kind of glad that not everybody knew, because that helps my mission of putting a face to what alcohol misuse in women looks like. And so they, maybe someone went through my Instagram and they're looking for these wretched pictures or this woman who's falling apart. I didn't look like that. And so saying you really puts a face to it. The silent epidemic of alcohol use disorder amongst women. And so if and when you choose to share that you're not drinking, you might get that response as well. Another response that I got was, okay, girl, but I mean, I drink more than you. So what's that mean? I did get that. I drink more than you, Victoria. What do you mean you're an alcohol coach and you're like coaching people? You drink less than me. I mean, that one was tough because the only person who can decide if they have an issue with their drinking is us, right? And so when some of my girlfriends said that, I gained tools where I would bring it back to myself. And I would say things like, I don't know if you drink more or less than me. It was making me feel really miserable. And so this is what I'm doing. And it's not a reflection on you at all. I love you. You're my friend. I don't know if it made them feel better at that time. I know it did create a little awkwardness sometimes. But that's okay, because these are women that I've known for a really long time and whom I consider to be dear, dear friends. And so, our relationship was built on more than being drinking buddies. And over time, because I just showed up as my authentic self, we all made peace with it. And so, to tell you the truth, I don't really know how much they drink now. I don't know. I do know that some of them have come to me to ask about what it's like, to ask about how I did it. And some of them have reduced their drinking. 2 of them have stopped. And so I get it. If you're listening, I really do understand. And I'm not going to lie to you and say that I didn't toss and turn a few nights wondering how my decision was making them feel. I don't know what that says about me. Maybe a little bit codependent, seeking some validation. But the truth of it is, I never want to hurt my friends. And I don't want to hurt their feelings. And I don't want them to feel bad. If they feel some sort of way, they're adults and they can manage it. But what I do know is that I never showed up as preaching to them or telling them that they should change their drinking habits. I really just continued to show up as myself. And I'm a good and true and authentic friend. And it turns out that's what they are after from me. And so they have other drinking buddies that if they're going to go and, tear it up, they go do that. And we do other stuff. We also do things like go to dinner and do stuff where there might be alcohol present, but it's not a long drinking night or anything like that. Not to mention, you guys, I mean, my friends and I were 52, 53 years old. And so those nights are becoming less and less frequent anyway. One more note on that, being middle-aged and drinking. I've said this on coaching calls before. If someone is middle-aged and they are drinking in a way that they know is not giving them a good return on their investment, we'll call it, they're not happy about it. They're not. If you're in your 40s and 50s and you wake up hungover or feeling ashamed, feeling gross, wondering what you said, what you did, you're not happy about it. If you can't get to the gym, if you can't lose those few stubborn pounds, if your skin is aging more rapidly than it should, you're not happy about it. And so I know that's a lot to take on, but it's true. And so if your friends are drinking excessively and you stop, is it possible that you can plant some seeds? Not preach, just plant some seeds. Just something to think about. Speaking of our skin and whatnot, another response I would get when people hadn't seen me in a while was, what happened? Why do you look so good? Okay, so we're all aging and it's part of life. And hey, like I've said, as a breast cancer survivor, I'm not all that mad about the fact that I get to have another wrinkle. I don't encourage them. I don't want a whole lot, but it's going to happen. And hey, I'm alive, so I'm happy about it. I'm also doing whatever I can to keep those wrinkles at bay to an extent. But they would say, why do you look so good? And I'd say, well, I'm working out, I'm eating healthy. I typically don't eat after 6 or 7 at night because it's better for my digestion. And I'm not drinking alcohol. And it's so funny, you guys, because they're hanging on every word. Like, what are you doing? Until I get to I don't drink alcohol. And they're like, oh, shoot. I think they were waiting for that cream that I use on my face or some treatment I get at my dermatologists or my estheticians when I go to get a facial. But the not drinking is really the biggest part of it. And so it's kind of funny. And so one of them said once, oh, well, I was about to be jealous of how good you look. Now I don't know if I am because you're not drinking. And we had a laugh about that. It was funny. But yeah, that they will sometimes say, oh, no wonder you look so good. Because it's true. If you look at our social media, you can see we will post sometimes with permission pictures of our graduates, and the difference after 90 days is astounding. And so if you want to make your friends wonder why you're looking so good, take a break from drinking. Another question I would get, the reaction would be, forever? Are you doing this forever? I'm so curious about why we get hung up on the term forever when it comes to alcohol. Isn't it interesting? If you have any thoughts on that, why do we get so hung up around the word forever when it comes to not drinking? Please message us. What are your thoughts? Why is the word forever such a big deal? If someone had an adverse reaction to dairy, which happens in our 40s and 50s, right? Would someone say, are you giving up dairy forever? Forever? Really? You're not going to have cheese ever? What about Cinco de Mayo? What about nachos? Are you going to have cheese then? It sounds ridiculous, doesn't it? But wow, no one cares. No one asks, how long are you going to be doing this for? And so when they would say to me, forever, I would simply, I just learned to say, I don't know. I mean, I'm not drinking today. What about at Christmas? And I'd say, well, I don't know. I haven't thought about Christmas. I don't know why I would, because I feel really good. You just asked me why I look good and my pants fit better and my kids like me more. I didn't go into all this, but in my head, that's kind of what I'm saying, like, I mean, let's count the things I've gained. I've lost weight, my skin looks better, my kids like me again. I'm saving a bunch of money. But I would just say, I don't know. I don't think about Christmas. But yeah, I'm not drinking. Over time, people stopped asking. Do you know why? Because people are adaptable. I showed up enough times not drinking that they just got used to it. It's sort of like if, I don't know, again, dairy, gluten. What if someone changed their hair color? How many times would you ask them, are you going back to being a brunette? Or would you just finally kind of stop noticing, right? You'd stop noticing. The only way you might say something is if it made you feel some way about yourself. And so, for those of you listening who've maybe taken a break from drinking, and there's that one friend who keeps bringing it up, change the language a little. Put dairy in there. Put a hair color in there. Would they care? No, not unless they took it personally, right? And so if people are asking you over and over again, I promise it's most likely because of how your not drinking makes them feel about their drinking. That is the bottom line. And in Beyond 90, a big part of our coaching is helping you feel empowered around that kind of stuff. And so what changed? How did I go from that frantic woman going back to the car dealership and smuggling her AA book? How did I go from the girl who was smuggling club soda into the bathroom and pouring out a vodka soda or not, right? How did I go from the lady with the with the apple juice who had just slapped the alcoholic sticker on her forehead? How did I go from that to this? Well, I changed. People didn't change. When you stop drinking, people will still be people. And I can promise you that if you spend your time worrying about how to change them, it's going to cause problems. If you spend your time worrying about how to make them feel good, you're going to keep feeling bad. And so I learned tools. The same way that you've learned tools to do other things in life, through our coaching, you're going to gain some tools. And once I learned about that part, once I gained those tools, everything changed for me. So I changed because I realized there were people out there who were living a life without alcohol, and they were really happy. Not just, oh yeah, I'm a grateful alcoholic. No, I mean living a life that doesn't have room for drinking because they love their lives. They've filled that void that they kept pouring alcohol into, and they've filled it with things of their choosing. I followed them. I learned from them. I said, well, what are you guys doing? I want to do that. And social media, with all its pitfalls, has been wonderful for that. I found a couple of women who were the early ones who were living happily without drinking. And I said, man, now that's an inspiration. I want to be like them. Little did I know I'd be on this podcast someday, but it started with that. I chose people that had something I wanted, who weren't just not drinking, people who were living. That's what I emulated. And so what happens when you begin to live a life of your choosing and not of alcohol's choosing? You find what makes you happy, and then you build on it. What makes me happy? Well, I don't know. I don't have hobbies yet, Coach V. I don't know what makes me happy. Well, does waking up with a hangover make you happy? No. Okay, so let's live a life where you don't wake up with a hangover. Let's start there. Okay. So not waking up with a hangover makes you happy. Cool. We start there. And then what else? Well, I really like smoothies. Okay, make a smoothie. What else do you like? I mean, I used to be a runner. Okay, maybe go for a walk, get some fresh air. And so, do you see what I'm doing here? Habit stacking, if you're a James Clear fan, but habit stacking because you start to do the things that make you feel good. And so, when that social event comes up, you're walking in, you've had a good day. You woke up fresh, you exercised, you had your smoothie, you did things you like, you petted your dog, whatever, played with your kids, your clothes fit better, and you walk in and you confidently order something that isn't a drug. It's as simple as that. Something that's not a drug, and you drink it. So I followed people who had something in their life that I wanted in mine. The other thing I did is I kept my eye on something bigger than that moment of people asking me, do you want a glass of wine? A moment bigger than, so why don't you drink alcohol? A moment bigger than someone giving me a puzzled look because I'm drinking a non-drug drink. I focused on what I want for my life, how I want my kids to feel when they introduce me to someone. Staying healthy so that someday I get to meet my grandbabies, if I have any. Fitting into my jeans. Fitting into my jeans, whatever it is, right? The feeling of getting home without being drunk and washing my face and putting on lotion that smells really, really good and putting lavender linen spray on my sheets, things like that. So you keep your eye on the prize, and the prize can be something as big as I want to meet my grandbabies someday to as small as I want to be able to thoroughly wash my face today. That matters to me. And so at Project 90, we understand that you cannot predict how people will receive your new lifestyle. What we can do is guarantee you're going to have tools so that whatever happens, you're going to be okay. And in the long run, so will your friends. I don't know anyone who has stopped drinking who is that kid on the playground not getting picked for the team. Relationships sometimes shift, interests and hobbies change, but if this lifestyle was not sustainable, we wouldn't be doing it. It would become intolerable to do this day after day. We understand what it's like because we've been there. James has stories about it. Coach Sarah has stories, and I certainly just shared some of mine. Dr. Seuss said, "Those who matter don't mind, and those who mind don't matter." Sometimes it's as simple as that, going back to good old Dr. Seuss. The people who matter most don't mind if you're drinking club soda. And in the long run, the people who mind, they won't matter. Until next time, take good care. Thanks so much for listening. Have a beautiful day.